Justice at dawn. The courtroom was packed to capacity, the air heavy with tension. This wasn't just any trial, it was the trial of Judge William Halstead, a man whose decades-long reign of corruption had finally been exposed. Journalists jostled for position, their cameras capturing every moment, while Angela Carter sat quietly in the gallery, her face a mask of composure. For months, Angela had been the face of this battle, enduring countless threats, smear campaigns, and sleepless nights. Now, as the evidence was presented piece by piece, she felt a cautious hope. Justice was within reach, but it wasn't guaranteed. Halstead's defense team had launched an aggressive counterattack, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The trial unfolds. The prosecution opened with a powerful statement from Thomas Grayson, the assistant U.S. attorney who had taken the case. Ladies and gentlemen, this trial is about more than one man's actions. It's about a system corrupted by greed and prejudice, a system that has failed the people it was meant to serve. Judge William Halstead used his position of power not to uphold justice, but to destroy it. He presented the journal, carefully walking the jury through its most damning entries. Bribes, fabricated evidence, and targeted rulings were meticulously documented in Halstead's own handwriting. The defense, however, was equally prepared. Judge Halstead is the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt, his lead attorney declared. This journal, which the prosecution hinges its case on, was obtained illegally. It cannot be trusted. Angela clenched her fists as she listened. Halstead's team was banking on discrediting the journal and shifting the focus to procedural issues. It was a strategy designed to sow doubt, and she knew it could work. The testimony. Angela was called to the stand as a key witness. The courtroom fell silent as she took her oath and faced the defense attorney. Senator Carter, the attorney began, his tone sharp, you spearheaded the effort to expose Judge Halstead. Isn't it true that your actions were driven by personal vendetta due to your father's conviction? Angela didn't flinch. My actions were driven by a commitment to justice. My father's wrongful conviction was the catalyst, but this case is about far more than one man. It's about a judge who abused his power to destroy countless lives. The defense attorney pressed on, attempting to rattle her, but Angela remained composed, her answers clear and unwavering. When it was Grayson's turn to question her, he focused on the broader implications of her fight. Senator Carter, what message do you hope this trial sends to the public? Angela looked directly at the jury. I hope it sends a message that no one is above the law, not even those who enforce it. Our justice system can't function without accountability. This trial is an opportunity to restore faith in that system. The turning point. The prosecution's case reached its crescendo with the testimony of Maria Alvarez, the former housekeeper who had risked everything to expose Halstead. Maria recounted her years of working in his home, her voice trembling but resolute. I saw him write in that journal every night, she said. He called it his insurance policy. He said it would protect him if anyone ever turned against him. Her testimony was a devastating blow to the defense. Combined with the forensic analysis of the journal, which confirmed Halstead's handwriting and fingerprints, it painted an irrefutable picture of his guilt. Halstead takes the stand. In a surprising move, Halstead's attorneys called him to testify. He took the stand with the arrogance of a man who believed he could still outmaneuver his accusers. Judge Halstead, his attorney began, do you deny the allegations against you? Absolutely, Halstead replied, his voice steady. This entire case is a farce. That journal is a fabrication, and the so-called evidence against me is nothing more than a smear campaign orchestrated by Senator Carter. Thomas Grayson rose for cross-examination, his demeanor calm but relentless. Judge Halstead, you claim the journal is a fabrication. Can you explain why your fingerprints were found on it? Halstead hesitated, his confidence faltering for the first time. It's possible someone planted it. I handle many documents in my home. Grayson didn't let up. And the handwriting analysis? The entries match your writing style and vocabulary perfectly. Are you suggesting that, too, was fabricated? Halstead shifted uncomfortably. I don't have an explanation for that. Grayson leaned closer, his voice cutting. You don't have an explanation because the truth is clear, you wrote that journal. You recorded your crimes because you thought you were untouchable. But today, you face the consequences of your actions. The verdict. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached its decision. The courtroom was packed as the foreperson stood to deliver the verdict. On the charges of bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy, we find the defendant, William Halstead, guilty. A collective gasp filled the room, followed by murmurs of relief and vindication. Angela closed her eyes, her shoulders sagging with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. The aftermath. Halstead was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, his reputation in tatters. The ripple effects of the trial extended far beyond the courtroom. Several of Halstead's allies were implicated in related investigations, leading to a wave of resignations and indictments. Angela became a symbol of resilience and accountability, her fight inspiring others to challenge corruption in their communities. Despite the personal cost, she remained steadfast in her belief that justice was worth any sacrifice. A new chapter. Months later, Angela stood on the steps of the Capitol, addressing a crowd gathered for a rally on judicial reform. This victory is not mine alone, she said. It belongs to every person who stood up, spoke out, and demanded better. Our fight doesn't end here. Together, we will continue to build a justice system that serves everyone, not just the powerful. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers a testament to the movement Angela had ignited. As she stepped away from the podium, her father, Leonard Carter, approached her, his eyes filled with pride. You did it, Angie, he said, pulling her into a hug. Angela smiled through tears. We did it, Dad. Together. And as the sun set on the city, Angela Carter knew that the fight for justice was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. Into the fire. Angela Carter held the journal in her hands like it was a fragile artifact, its weight symbolic of the years of unchecked power it documented. Each page unveiled a labyrinth of corruption and betrayal orchestrated by Judge William Halstead. But Angela knew the journal alone wasn't enough to ensure justice. It had to reach the right hands, the ones that couldn't be bought or silenced. The office buzzed with tension as her team strategized their next move. Derek Jacobs stood by the window, keeping watch, while Sarah Blake, the investigative journalist, cross-referenced the journal entries with publicly available records. We need to go federal with this, Sarah said, not looking up from her laptop. State-level authorities are too compromised. Halstead's influence runs deep here. Angela nodded. Agreed. But we need to package this carefully. A single misstep, and Halstead's team will spin it as an attack based on fabricated evidence. Michael Reyes, her chief of staff, chimed in. We should prepare for an immediate counteroffensive. Halstead's people won't sit idly by while we hand over this journal. As if on cue, Angela's phone buzzed with a notification. It was a breaking news alert. Judge Halstead files emergency injunction against Senator Carter, claiming violation of privacy and unlawful possession of personal property. Angela slammed the journal onto her desk. He's trying to bury us before we even start. Typical. A preemptive strike. Angela knew time was of the essence. If Halstead's injunction was granted, it could render the journal inadmissible and cripple their case before it even began. She called Marcus Bell, the former prosecutor who had been quietly assisting her. Marcus, I need your help, Angela said. Halstead's filed an injunction, and we're running out of time. Marcus sighed on the other end. I figured he would. I've already reached out to a federal prosecutor I trust. His name is Thomas Grayson. He has a reputation for going after high-profile corruption cases. But Angela, you need to move fast. Halstead has friends in every corner of the legal system. Where can I find Grayson? Angela asked. Marcus gave her an address, a federal office building downtown. Angela ended the call and turned to her team. We're going to see Grayson. Michael, prepare a press release outlining our findings but hold it until I give the signal. Derek, double security. Halstead won't let us do this without a fight. The meeting with Thomas Grayson. Angela arrived at the federal building under heavy security. Derek's team escorted her through the maze of corridors until they reached a modest office marked Assistant U.S. Attorney Thomas Grayson. Grayson was a sharp-looking man in his 40s with a no-nonsense demeanor. He stood as Angela entered, extending a hand. Senator Carter. I've heard a lot about you recently. Good things, I hope, Angela replied with a wry smile. Depends on who you ask, Grayson said, motioning for her to sit. Marcus filled me in on the basics, but I want to hear it from you. Angela laid the journal on the desk and began recounting everything, Halstead's years of corruption, the journal's discovery, and her father's wrongful conviction. Grayson listened intently, flipping through the journal as she spoke. This is explosive, he said after a long silence. If even half of what's in here is true, Halstead could face decades in prison. But this won't be easy. His legal team will challenge every piece of evidence, and his allies will use every trick in the book to protect him. Angela met his gaze. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for justice. Grayson nodded. Then let's get to work. The fallout begins. As Grayson's team began building their case, Angela returned to her office to finalize her strategy. But the moment she stepped inside, her phone rang. It was Maria Alvarez, the former housekeeper who had helped retrieve the journal. Senator, something's wrong, Maria said, her voice trembling. There's a car parked outside my house. It's been there all day. Angela's heart sank. Stay inside and lock your doors. I'll send someone to you immediately. She turned to Derek. Halstead's people are targeting Maria. We need to get her somewhere safe. Derek nodded, already issuing orders to his team. Maria's call was a grim reminder of the stakes. Halstead wasn't just fighting to save his career, he was fighting to preserve his freedom, and he wouldn't hesitate to destroy anyone in his way. The trial by media. As federal prosecutors worked behind the scenes, Angela faced a trial of her own in the court of public opinion. Halstead's allies flooded the airwaves with accusations, calling her a rogue senator, and claiming she was undermining judicial integrity. Angela countered with calculated appearances on news programs, where she presented her case with unwavering resolve. She shared carefully vetted portions of the journal, exposing Halstead's misconduct without compromising the integrity of the investigation. During a heated interview, a prominent talk show host pressed her. Senator Carter, some say you're overstepping your role and waging a personal vendetta. How do you respond to those critics? Angela didn't flinch. This isn't about me or my father, it's about the countless lives Halstead has ruined through his corruption. If fighting for justice makes me a target, so be it. I won't back down. The public response was polarizing. While many rallied behind Angela, others questioned her motives. But Angela knew she couldn't let the noise distract her from the mission. The tipping point. A breakthrough came when Sarah Blake uncovered an additional connection between Halstead and Peter Grayson, the developer implicated in the journal. Sarah obtained emails showing that Grayson had funneled bribes to several judges, not just Halstead, in exchange for favorable rulings on lucrative construction projects. Sarah brought the evidence to Angela. This proves Halstead isn't working alone. If we expose this network, we could blow the entire system wide open. Angela's eyes gleamed with determination. Then let's do it. They coordinated with Thomas Grayson's office to release the new evidence in tandem with the federal indictment against Halstead. The timing was crucial, they needed to overwhelm Halstead's defense team and force his allies to cut ties with him. The indictment. The federal indictment was announced during a press conference led by Thomas Grayson. The charges against Halstead included bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. The journal and Sarah's findings were presented as key pieces of evidence, painting a damning picture of a man who had abused his power for decades. Angela watched the broadcast from her office, her chest tight with emotion. The fight wasn't over, but this was a significant victory. As the cameras captured Grayson's closing remarks, Angela's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "You did it, Angela. The walls are closing in on him." She allowed herself a brief smile before turning to her team. "This is just the beginning. Let's finish what we started." In the face of relentless opposition and danger, Angela Carter had turned the tide. But with the trial looming and Halstead's allies regrouping, the battle for justice was far from over. The hunter becomes the hunted. The city buzzed with the news of Angela Carter's bold moves against Judge William Halstead. Her press conferences and the release of evidence had shaken the establishment, but it also stirred a hornet's nest of opposition. As Angela's team worked tirelessly to keep the momentum alive, the stakes grew higher with every passing hour. Late one evening, Angela sat in her office, her desk cluttered with files, laptops, and half-empty coffee cups. Her head of security, Derek Jacobs, entered the room, his expression grim. "Senator, we have a situation," he said, closing the door behind him. Angela looked up, her brow furrowed. "What is it now?" Derek placed a tablet on her desk, pulling up footage from the security cameras outside her residence. The video showed two men in dark clothing loitering near her front gate, one of them snapping photos while the other appeared to tamper with something. "We intercepted them before they could do any real damage," Derek said. "But it's clear they're sending a message. Halstead's allies are escalating." Angela's jaw tightened. "Let them try. I won't be intimidated." Derek shook his head. "This isn't just intimidation. They're testing your limits. We need to increase your security detail." Angela sighed but nodded. "Do what you need to do. I can't afford distractions right now." The whistleblower emerges. The following day, Angela received an unexpected phone call from Clara Daniels, the former clerk who had initially provided her with key evidence. Clara's voice was shaky but determined. "Angela, I've been thinking about our conversation," Clara began. "There's something I didn't tell you." Angela sat up straighter. "Go on." Halstead kept a personal journal, a ledger, really. He recorded everything, bribes, favors, the people he silenced. "I saw it once, but I didn't have the courage to take it. If you can find that journal, it could be the final nail in his coffin." Angela's mind raced. "Do you know where he keeps it?" "There's a safe in his home office," Clara said. "It's hidden behind a false panel in the bookshelf. But be careful, Halstead's house is heavily guarded." Angela thanked Clara and hung up. The information about the journal was a game-changer, but retrieving it would be a monumental challenge. Halstead's estate was a fortress, complete with state-of-the-art security in a private security team. Still, Angela knew she had to act. The plan. Angela convened a meeting with her inner circle, including Derek, her chief of staff Michael, and investigative journalist Sarah Blake. "We need that journal," Angela said, laying out Clara's information. "It's the key to bringing Halstead down." Michael frowned. "Breaking into his house is risky, not to mention illegal. If this goes wrong, it could ruin everything." Angela nodded. "That's why we're not breaking in. We're going to get someone on the inside." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And who exactly do you have in mind?" Angela glanced at Derek. "Halstead recently fired one of his housekeepers. I've already reached out to her, and she's agreed to help us." The housekeeper, Maria Alvarez, was a single mother who had worked for Halstead for nearly a decade. When she refused to cover up one of his more egregious actions, she was dismissed without severance. Maria's bitterness toward Halstead made her a willing ally. The infiltration. Maria entered Halstead's estate under the guise of picking up her final paycheck. Armed with a hidden camera provided by Derek, she navigated the sprawling mansion with practiced ease. She lingered in the library, pretending to clean while scanning the shelves for the false panel Clara had described. After several tense minutes, Maria found it. Her hands trembled as she pushed the panel aside, revealing a sleek black safe. She quickly snapped photos of the safe and its surroundings before slipping out of the room. The footage Maria captured allowed Angela's team to identify the safe's make and model. Derek brought in a cybersecurity expert, who analyzed the images and devised a plan to bypass its biometric lock. The decoy. While Angela's team prepared for the operation, Halstead was busy countering the growing pressure against him. He appeared on television, painting himself as a victim of a politically motivated witch hunt. His allies flooded social media with hashtags supporting his innocence, and his lawyers filed a defamation lawsuit against Angela. Angela knew Halstead's media blitz was a distraction, but it also presented an opportunity. She scheduled a high-profile town hall meeting to discuss corruption in the judiciary, knowing it would draw Halstead's attention. The night of the town hall, Angela delivered a fiery speech, denouncing abuse of power and reaffirming her commitment to justice. Cameras flashed, and journalists scribbled furiously as Angela spoke. Meanwhile, Derek and his team executed the infiltration. The heist. Maria's familiarity with Halstead's estate proved invaluable. Dressed as a catering staff member for a party Halstead was hosting, she slipped Derek and two of his operatives through a side entrance. They moved quickly and quietly, avoiding the patrolling guards. Reaching the library, Derek worked on the safe while the others kept watch. The biometric lock proved tricky, but Derek's expertise paid off. Within minutes, the safe clicked open, revealing its contents: stacks of cash, a handgun, and a leather-bound journal. Derek snapped photos of everything before carefully retrieving the journal. They secured it in a padded case and exited the estate as swiftly as they had entered. The revelation. Back at Angela's office, the team pored over the journal. Its pages were filled with meticulous entries detailing years of corruption. Each transaction, bribe, and cover-up was recorded in Halstead's precise handwriting. The journal also included notes about Leonard Carter's case, confirming that Halstead had orchestrated the charges as a personal vendetta. Angela felt a surge of vindication. "This is it," she said, holding the journal aloft. "This is what we've been waiting for." But as the team celebrated, Angela's phone buzzed with an urgent text from Marcus Bell, her former prosecutor ally: "Be careful. Halstead knows about the journal. He's coming for you." The fight ahead. Angela's victory felt bittersweet. The journal was undeniable proof of Halstead's guilt, but it also made her a target. As Halstead's network scrambled to protect itself, Angela braced for the inevitable backlash. The next step would be the hardest: bringing the evidence to federal authorities and ensuring it couldn't be buried or dismissed. But Angela was ready. The truth was on her side, and she wouldn't stop until justice was served. The hunter had become the hunted, but Angela Carter was determined to win. The turning tide. Angela Carter sat in her office, staring at the evidence spread across her desk. The weight of the battle ahead was palpable, but so was her resolve. The documents from Clara Daniels and the data from the flash drive painted a chilling portrait of Judge Halstead's corruption. Yet, as damning as the evidence was, Angela knew it wasn't enough to take him down. She needed more, something irrefutable, something that couldn't be dismissed or buried. The knock on her office door startled her. Angela's chief of staff, Michael Reyes, stepped inside, his face lined with concern. "Senator, we've got a problem." Angela raised an eyebrow. "What now?" Michael closed the door behind him and handed her a tablet. "This just went live." Angela took the device and tapped the screen. A smear article had been published online, accusing her of misusing campaign funds and fabricating evidence to target Judge Halstead. The piece was filled with baseless claims but written in a tone designed to erode public trust. Angela's lips thinned. "This is Halstead's doing." Michael nodded. "It's already gaining traction. If we don't address it, this could derail everything." Angela set the tablet down and leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. "We fight fire with fire. Schedule a press conference for tomorrow. I'll address the accusations head-on and redirect the focus to Halstead's crimes." Michael hesitated. "Are you sure? If we go public with this, Halstead will come at you even harder." Angela met his gaze, her eyes steely. "Let him. The truth is on our side." The press conference. The next day, Angela stood at the podium, the glare of cameras and the buzz of reporters filling the room. She wore her signature navy suit, her posture straight and unyielding. Michael stood off to the side, his expression a mixture of worry and pride. "Good morning," Angela began, her voice steady and commanding. "I've called this press conference to address the baseless accusations that have been leveled against me. Let me be clear, these allegations are false and an attempt to distract from the real issue at hand, the corruption of Judge William Halstead." The room erupted in murmurs, reporters leaning forward as Angela continued. "For too long, Judge Halstead has wielded his power to manipulate the legal system for personal gain. I have evidence that proves his involvement in bribery, case tampering, and the systematic targeting of vulnerable individuals. This isn't just about my father's case, this is about justice for everyone who has been wronged by his actions." Angela held up a folder, its contents a curated selection of the most damning evidence. "I will be submitting this to the appropriate authorities for investigation, and I will not stop until Judge Halstead is held accountable." The reporters fired off a barrage of questions, but Angela maintained her composure. She knew the press conference was just the beginning, the real battle would unfold in the days and weeks ahead. The counterattack. As expected, Halstead didn't take Angela's accusations lying down. Within hours, his legal team issued a statement denying all allegations and accusing Angela of conducting a politically motivated smear campaign. The media latched onto the story, turning it into a public spectacle. Angela's team worked tirelessly to stay ahead of the narrative. They released additional evidence to back her claims, including financial records and testimonials from individuals who had been harmed by Halstead's rulings. The public response was divided, some hailed Angela as a hero, while others accused her of overstepping her bounds. But Angela didn't waver. She knew the key to winning the court of public opinion was to keep the focus on Halstead's actions, not her own. To that end, she reached out to investigative journalist Sarah Blake, a tenacious reporter known for exposing corruption at the highest levels. Sarah met Angela at a quiet cafe late one evening, her notepad already open. "You've got guts, Senator. Taking on someone like Halstead isn't for the faint of heart." "I'm not looking for praise," Angela replied. "I'm looking for justice." Sarah nodded. "Then let's get to work." A fragile alliance. With Sarah's help, Angela began to uncover more about Halstead's network. They discovered that Peter Grayson, the developer mentioned in the emails, was a central figure in the corruption scheme. Grayson's construction company had benefited from several questionable rulings, allowing him to acquire prime real estate at bargain prices. In return, Grayson funneled money into Halstead's offshore accounts and used his influence to silence potential whistleblowers. Angela and Sarah decided to confront Grayson directly. They arranged a meeting under the guise of discussing a development project, knowing he wouldn't resist an opportunity to curry favor with a senator. The meeting took place in a sleek downtown office, its walls adorned with modern art and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Grayson greeted Angela with a polished smile, his handshake firm but insincere. "What can I do for you, Senator?" he asked, motioning for her to sit. Angela wasted no time. "You can start by explaining your relationship with Judge Halstead." Grayson's smile faltered, and his eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're talking about. Angela leaned forward, her gaze unflinching. I have emails, financial records, and testimonies that say otherwise. If you don't cooperate, I'll take everything I have to the authorities. Grayson's facade cracked, but he quickly recovered. You're playing a dangerous game, Senator. Halstead isn't someone you want to cross. Neither am I, Angela shot back. Now, are you going to help me, or do I expose you along with him? Grayson hesitated, then exhaled heavily. What do you want? A game-changing revelation. Grayson's cooperation proved invaluable. He provided Angela with a list of additional players in Halstead's network, including a bank executive who had facilitated the judge's offshore transactions. But the most shocking revelation came in the form of a recording, an audio file of Halstead discussing Leonard's case. In the recording, Halstead's voice was unmistakable. Carter's conviction will send a message. We can't let someone like him walk free, it sets the wrong precedent. Angela felt a surge of anger as she listened to the tape. Halstead's words were dripping with prejudice, his intent to frame her father laid bare. This was the smoking gun she had been searching for. The next move. Armed with the recording and Grayson's testimony, Angela prepared for the next phase of her fight. She scheduled another press conference and began coordinating with federal investigators to ensure Halstead's crimes couldn't be swept under the rug. But as she stood in her office, staring out at the city skyline, Angela knew the battle was far from over. Halstead still had powerful allies, and the road to justice would be fraught with obstacles. Yet, for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The tide was turning, and Angela Carter was ready to lead the charge. Shadows and Secrets. Angela Carter sat in her dimly lit office, the glow of her computer screen reflecting off her determined face. The flash drive she had received in the library was proving to be a treasure trove of information. Her team had spent the last 48 hours combing through its contents, unearthing a web of corruption that stretched far beyond Judge Halstead's courtroom. Each new discovery was more damning than the last: financial statements revealing dubious transactions, case files with glaring discrepancies, and email chains that exposed Halstead's collusion with influential figures. Angela's gut churned as she read the emails. One exchange caught her attention, a conversation between Halstead and a high-powered local developer named Peter Grayson. The emails detailed a scheme to push certain cases through the legal system in exchange for political favors. Angela couldn't ignore the connection. Grayson was one of the largest donors to Halstead's re-election campaign. The implication was clear: Leonard's trial was just another pawn in Halstead's chessboard of influence. An unexpected ally. As the sun began to rise, Angela's phone buzzed. It was Marcus Bell, the former prosecutor she had confided in earlier. His voice was sharp, tinged with urgency. Angela, we've got a problem. Angela straightened in her chair. What is it? Halstead's people are on to you. Word on the street is that someone's been poking around his finances. They'll retaliate if they haven't already. Angela clenched her jaw. Let them try. I'm not backing down. Marcus hesitated. I didn't call to discourage you. I called because you'll need backup. I've been digging into Halstead's past myself, and I found someone who might be willing to help, a whistleblower from inside the courthouse. Who? Angela asked, her interest piqued. Her name is Clara Daniels. She worked as Halstead's clerk 5 years ago. She left under mysterious circumstances, but not before she saw enough to make her a liability. Angela scribbled down the name. Do you have her contact information? I'll send it over, but tread lightly. Clara's been off the grid for years, and there's no guarantee she'll talk. Angela thanked Marcus and hung up. Within minutes, she had Clara's address, a modest apartment on the outskirts of Rivermount. Without hesitation, Angela grabbed her coat and headed out. The Keeper of Secrets. The apartment complex was a far cry from Rivermount's upscale neighborhoods. Peeling paint and rusted railings spoke of years of neglect. Angela knocked on Clara's door, the sound echoing through the empty hallway. After a moment, the door cracked open, revealing a cautious face framed by tired eyes. "Clara Daniels?" Angela asked. Clara's gaze hardened. "Who's asking?" "Angela Carter." "I'm a Senator N." "I know who you are," Clara interrupted. "And I know why you're here." Angela was taken aback. "You do?" Clara sighed, opening the door wider. "Come in. But make it quick. If Halstead's people are watching, I don't want to give them a reason to show up." Angela stepped inside, her eyes scanning the sparse living room. Clara motioned for her to sit while she perched on the edge of a chair. "I left that courthouse for a reason, Senator. Halstead doesn't just ruin lives in the courtroom, he ensures anyone who crosses him disappears." Angela leaned forward. "Then why talk to me?" Clara's lips thinned. "Because I've seen what he's capable of, and I've lived with the guilt of staying silent. If your father's innocent, and Halstead's behind this, I can't keep looking the other way." A piece of the puzzle. Clara began to recount her time as Halstead's clerk. "It started small," she said. "Cases that didn't add up, rulings that favored people with deep pockets. At first, I thought it was just politics, but then I stumbled across his personal files." "What did you find?" Angela pressed. "Payoffs," Clara said, her voice bitter. "Cash deposits into offshore accounts, properties gifted to him under aliases, and case files he kept off the record. Halstead was selling verdicts to the highest bidder." Angela's mind raced. "Did you keep any evidence?" Clara hesitated before standing and retrieving a small, battered lockbox from a closet. Inside was a stack of documents, faded but legible. She handed them to Angela. "This is all I managed to copy before I left. It's not much, but it's enough to connect the dots." Angela flipped through the papers. Among them were transcripts of conversations between Halstead and local power players, discussing everything from campaign donations to threats against opposing attorneys. One document, in particular, caught her eye, a transcript that mentioned her father by name. "This proves Halstead was involved in framing my father," Angela said, her voice trembling with both rage and determination. Clara nodded. "He's been untouchable for so long because no one's had the guts to go after him. But you might be the one who can take him down." The trap tightens. As Angela left Clara's apartment, she felt a surge of resolve. With the documents in hand and the information from the flash drive, she had enough to expose Halstead's corruption. But she knew the battle was far from over. Halstead wouldn't go down without a fight, and his network of allies would do everything in their power to discredit her. Angela's car engine roared to life as she headed back to her office. She called Marcus on the way. "I've got Clara's files. We need to move fast." "Good," Marcus replied. "But be careful. Halstead's people will try to shut you down. They've got eyes everywhere." Angela gripped the steering wheel. "Let them come. I've spent my entire career fighting for justice, and I won't stop now." But as she pulled into the parking lot of her office, Angela noticed a black SUV idling near the entrance. Her pulse quickened. The windows were tinted, and the vehicle didn't belong to anyone on her team. Angela parked a block away and entered the building through a back entrance. Once inside, she called her head of security. "I need eyes on a black SUV outside. No confrontations, just watch and report." As the night wore on, Angela worked tirelessly, piecing together the evidence she had gathered. But the sense of being watched never left her. She knew the trap was tightening, but she was determined to spring it on her terms. A warning in the dark. Around midnight, Angela received a call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Angela Carter," the voice on the other end said, low and menacing. "You're playing a dangerous game." "Who is this?" Angela demanded. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you drop this crusade. Halstead is untouchable, and if you keep digging, you'll regret it." Angela's grip on the phone tightened. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," the voice replied before the line went dead. Angela exhaled slowly, her mind racing. She knew she was stepping into dangerous territory, but the thought of her father rotting in prison, and the countless others Halstead had harmed, kept her resolve unshaken. The battle for justice had only just begun. The unyielding flame. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension as the murmur of anticipation swept through the crowd. Angela Carter sat in the gallery, her gaze fixed on the stern figure of Judge William Halstead, the presiding authority on her father's case. The room brimmed with the usual players, reporters clutching notebooks, attorneys murmuring to clients, and the restless shuffling of a crowd awaiting a verdict. But beneath the surface, a battle was raging, one that stretched beyond the confines of that room. Angela's father, Leonard Carter, was on trial for a crime he didn't commit, and Angela knew the scales of justice were tipped heavily against him. Leonard, a retired teacher and a community pillar, had been accused of orchestrating a violent break-in at a prestigious art gallery. The evidence was fragile at best, a witness's vague description, a grainy security video, and an illogical motive. Yet, Judge Halstead, known for his iron fist and questionable biases, seemed intent on ensuring Leonard's conviction. Halstead, like a shadowed relic of a bygone era, wielded his gavel not for justice but for his agenda, a fact Angela had long suspected but never had the means to prove. Angela wasn't merely a spectator in the unfolding drama, she was a woman on a mission. A Senate Majority Leader and an unyielding advocate for justice, Angela had spent years cultivating a reputation as a fighter for the underrepresented. Yet, the stakes had never been this personal. Watching her father sit stoically in the defendant's chair, framed by accusations that sought to tarnish his lifelong legacy, ignited a fire within her, a fire that no court ruling could extinguish. A legacy of resilience. The Carters had always been a family forged in the crucible of adversity. Leonard had raised Angela and her siblings in the heart of Rivermount, a small, working-class town with more struggles than opportunities. He was a man of quiet dignity, teaching not just literature but lessons in resilience and empathy. His students, many of whom came from broken homes, found in him a father figure who saw their potential rather than their limitations. Angela often recalled the countless nights Leonard would stay up grading papers, writing recommendation letters, or counseling troubled students. His work was his purpose, and his community was his family. Angela inherited that same tenacity. As a child, she watched her father stand up to school boards that tried to cut funding for at-risk students. She saw him rally the neighborhood to rebuild a playground destroyed by neglect and bureaucracy. These memories became the cornerstone of Angela's identity. "Justice isn't something you wait for," her father often said. "It's something you create." The catalyst. The case against Leonard wasn't just a blow to her family, it was a blatant display of the systemic rot Angela had spent her career fighting. From the outset, the arrest felt wrong. Leonard was nowhere near the scene of the crime, he had been at home, reading, when the gallery alarm blared. Yet, within hours, the police had arrested him, citing a witness who claimed to have seen a man matching his description leaving the scene. The flimsy accusation spiraled into a full-blown case when Judge Halstead took it on, ignoring exculpatory evidence and silencing questions of motive or method. Angela's initial outrage quickly transformed into action. She knew the battle ahead would be grueling, but the idea of her father spending his twilight years behind bars was unthinkable. Every fiber of her being told her there was more to this case than met the eye. Halstead's name alone made her suspicious. He was a man with a history, a relic of an old guard who clung to prejudices wrapped in legal authority. Whispers of corruption. Angela's suspicions were confirmed and an anonymous envelope appeared at her office weeks into her investigation. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a list of names, dates, and case numbers, all tied to Halstead's courtroom. The cases spanned decades, each with a common thread: defendants who were marginalized, powerless, or inconvenient to Halstead's allies. Many of the names were unfamiliar to Angela, but one stood out: a woman named Clara Reeves, whose case had caused an uproar years earlier when Halstead dismissed damning evidence against a prominent businessman accused of assaulting her. Angela's instincts screamed corruption. She called a trusted ally, Senator Marcus Bell, a former prosecutor with a nose for unraveling injustices. "Halstead's a fortress," Marcus warned her during a late-night call. "He's got friends in high places. If you're going after him, you'd better come armed to the teeth." Angela nodded grimly, even though Marcus couldn't see her. "Then let's start building our arsenal." The quest for truth. Angela began assembling a team, a group of lawyers, data analysts, and investigators willing to dig into the mountain of records linked to Halstead's rulings. But her formal request to access court archives hit a wall. Halstead, wielding his authority like a shield, declared the documents sealed, citing judicial privilege. The move was brazen but unsurprising, a clear indication that he had something to hide. That's when Angela's phone buzzed with a cryptic text. "Meet me tomorrow. Midnight. West Rivermount Library basement. Come alone." Angela's heart raced as she stared at the message. She had no idea who had sent it or whether it was a trap, but she wasn't about to ignore a lead. Equipped with a flashlight and a recording device, she arrived at the desolate library as instructed. The air was thick with dust and anticipation as she descended into the basement. A shadowy figure stepped forward from the stacks, their face obscured by a hood. "You're Angela Carter," the voice said, low and raspy. "And you have information," Angela replied, keeping her tone steady. The figure handed her a flash drive. "Halstead's been dirty for years. This drive has a piece of the puzzle: financial records, case anomalies, emails. It's enough to start pulling the threads. But you didn't get it from me." Before Angela could ask more, the figure melted into the shadows, leaving her alone with the evidence. She clutched the drive tightly, feeling a spark of hope amid the storm of despair. A battle ignited. Back at her office, Angela and her team began analyzing the data. The files revealed a labyrinth of corruption: bribes masked as campaign donations, secret communications with influential figures, and systematic biases that turned Halstead's courtroom into a weapon against the powerless. Leonard's case was just the latest in a long line of manipulated trials designed to serve the judge's interests. Angela's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about clearing her father's name, it was about dismantling a system that had failed countless others. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, but she had no intention of backing down. The courtroom battle was far from over, and Angela Carter was only getting started.